Hello, happy students. I'm back. Welcome to part two of Economics and Propaganda. We are going to try to move quickly now to the more pertinent material, but of course, I can't help it. It's now 2 days later since I've recorded the first one. So I've got to talk a little bit about the news. There was a tornado that struck Arkansas, Jonesboro, Arkansas, as a matter of fact, and you can find video of the tornado moving through the city, which is horrific. But the good news is, because of COVID-19, right now there is no reported fatalities. Apparently, everybody kept safe inside their homes because of the disease. So that is some good news. Moving on, uh, Bernie. The guy just won't go away. He just keeps coming. So because of the whole COVID thing, Biden's been locked away in his bunker, and Bernie, who's still a politician, still a lawmaker, has been arguing for Americans to get this financial relief from the government. And so he has a viral video out right now. I would highly suggest you go look it up. It is very interesting. He's basically saying, like, some of the Republican members of the House were arguing that people who made $10 or $12 an hour may even get $15 an hour with this financial help. And some of these Republicans were upset. And Bernie's out there going like, oh, we're going to start a revolution. So yeah, and so yeah, it's very interesting. You should go look it up. Also, I'm going to stop touching my face. I'm going to try to stop touching my face, but I seem to do that a lot. So let's move on. If you remember last time, we were talking about inflation and how inflation is an indicator in the economy, and it's usually a predictable indicator. Usually here in America, it's usually 2 to 3%, right? And we watch this indicator because it kind of is an indicator of our growth. But we know that if we have too much inflation, we get to hyperinflation. Now, we've seen examples last time of hyperinflation when we talked about Venezuela in 2018. 830,000%. That's where you're paying stacks of cash for toilet paper, of course, tomatoes and chickens. But we're going to have to ask ourselves, how does something like this really, really happen? Well, first of all, we talked about money supply increases when government just hands out cash to people like we're seeing right now. And what we think is we start seeing a loss of value, because when we have a lot of something, we tend to value it less as humans. And so when you see a lot of dollar bills flying around, you don't necessarily, at first you may feel richer, but eventually you start to lose confidence in this currency. And that's because there's nothing backing it up. In America, we use something called fiat money. Now, this is currency deemed legal by the government. That's the definition of fiat money. But what it means is that the dollar bill that you have in your pockets, in your banks, that under your mattresses, that money is essentially its only value comes from the value you give it inside your head. Your belief that it has value gives it value. And that's why when we see governments printing out large amounts of money, eventually we start to lose faith in the value of the dollar. And this all started back in 1934. It used to be that when you had a dollar bill, it was worth that much in gold. That much in gold. We called this a gold standard, right? But as 1934 happened, remember what happened slightly before 1934? There was the Great Depression. We're right in the middle of the Great Depression. And we did not have enough gold because we were printing money to pay our bills. And we eventually realized we had printed so much money that we cannot even back it with gold anymore. And one of the strengths of America up to this point was that we always pay our debts. Now, technically, that is still true. We always pay our debts. Even though we are trillions of dollars in debt, we keep promising that we're going to pay it, and hopefully one day we do. But in order to make this happen, what we did was we turned off the gold standard. We went to a fiat money system. We started saying, you know what? instead of being backed by gold, we'll just give it our own value in our own head. And since then, kind of it's kind of a backhanded thing because FDR uh, took away something very important, right? He took away this idea that the money in America was worth an actual backed gold. And so now they're able to print money all the time to pay our bills, but not too much because you don't want to lose that confidence, right? You can see here in the notes between before 1934 and after 1934. If you see here, you'll see a Federal Reserve note. This is a money we have right now. This is a faith-based currency of $1. Now, this used to be a silver certificate, meaning that you could take this and get the actual silver or gold from the Treasury. Now, this is a backed up and guaranteed dollar bill. This is not. And this is what we have right now, this idea of faith-based currency. But this has all have to do about the money supply, right? So once we changed from a gold or silver-backed currency and moved it to a faith-based currency, look at how quickly the money supply moved up, right? And all of this has to do with how much confidence you have in that dollar. Because if you lose confidence in that dollar, the value of it will drop dramatically. And this is what's really scary about what's going on right now when we have a government that is dropping $2.2 trillion. Keep in mind, again, we talked about this last time, but the federal budget is 4.8, so we're talking about nearly half the federal budget. I'm sorry, I'm getting worked up about this, but it scares me when our lawmakers do things like this. Because these are the things I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Venezuela. I'm thinking about Brazil in the 70s. I'm thinking about America post-revolution, post-Civil War, when we're using wheelbarrows to buy loaves of bread. These are the things I'm thinking about. And if we lose consumer confidence in our dollar, we could see massive inflation. And we can see like what happens here is like, look, this is the consumer confidence, right? So every time it goes up really, really high, these little gray areas right here, these are recessions. And you can see right here, this is the 2001 dot-com bubble, where all of a sudden we had a very, very high consumer confidence, and then it burst. And then right as we got to 2006, 2007, boom, burst. Look at where we are right now. These kind of indicators should scare you. I mean, I think there's no doubt that you see right now that we're in a recession. But the question is, are we in a depression? How bad could this thing get? And how worse could our government make it by just keeping pumping dollars into the system? Because what we saw last time was the housing bubble, of course, of 2008. And the housing bubble of 2008, nobody really knows. Nobody really knows. I think I know. But there is an argument, right? Because what was going on was banks were investing in housing owners, right? They would be willing to give you as much money as it took to own a house. Now, eventually, all those people that wanted to own houses got their loans, but the banks still wanted more. And so they were finding people that they probably shouldn't have been giving loans to, really. I mean, we're talking about people that were probably, didn't have a lot of assets, didn't have a job that could support the weight of a mortgage. But the banks did it anyways because they wanted a piece of that mortgage, even if it was for a few months. And this kind of thing led to the housing bubble. I have right here, long story short, banks invested indiscriminately, meaning that they did not care who they gave money to, in mortgages that eventually the system collapsed. Now we can see here that they were giving away more and more and more loans, even these subprime loans. Now subprime means that the owner wasn't prime, right? It wasn't like the guy to own a house. It was more like, well, maybe I'm a single mom and I work as a waitress. Guess what? You were getting a house. You were getting a house. And what the banks, they thought they can get away with this for a lot of years because housing prices kept increasing. But once housing prices stopped increasing, we saw this fall off dramatically. And you can see that the banks have stopped doing this, right? And we don't know what this new bubble is. We have no idea. A lot of people might say it's student loans or other types of loans. But what we need to remember most of all is that who got the blame for this, you know? So the savings and loan scandals of the 80s, we saw 839 people convicted. Of 2008, as bad as it was, and it was really, really bad, only one person was ever convicted of anything in 2008. And it's interesting. It was this guy named Kareem Sarah Geldin. Couldn't tell you who he is. But what is really interesting is that the Attorney General says this: I am concerned that the size of some of these institutions becomes so large that it does become difficult for us to prosecute them when we are hit with indications that if we do prosecute, if we do bring a criminal charge, it will have a negative impact on the national economy, perhaps even the world economy. Essentially, what he's saying here is that these institutions have become too big to fail. We cannot do anything legally against them, because if we lose them, we could lose the entire world economy. And thus, the government has to come in and bail people out, give people money. Even if they did the wrong thing, they had to give them money to stay afloat so that all of us stay afloat. Now, this is a really messed up situation. This is really wrong, but there is absolutely no way of fixing it. We have built ourselves upon a very tense and tedious pedestal. And if we fall, the whole world will fall. And that's why we see governments giving out $2.2 trillion right now. Because I heard today that we might not be back at work until June 1st. That's another 2 months of being shut down. And if we really look at this, what we've tried to do, and what we've done for the last few years, is tried to maintain a steady state economy, a stable growth pattern. And we are looking at 2 to 3%. Remember, we're looking at 2 to 3% growth. Hopefully, that's what we're hoping for. But the economy, as we know, fluctuates up and down, up and down. And we see this through our bubbles and our recessions and our good times, right? But I want to just show you guys some things. Check this out. If you look here, here's the dot-com bubble. But here's the steady state economy. And you can see us going back down to the steady state. 2008 crisis, back down to the steady state. Here's where we are right now. You can see how bad 2008 was. We have a long way to go. I have another graph. This is the S&P, right? Dot-com bubble, we go back. 2008, we go back. Here's where we are now. This is a long fall back. One more. NASDAQ. Remember, NASDAQ is a stock price index that deals with mostly technology stocks. And so you can see that it really got affected during the dot-com bubble, not so much during the 2008 housing crisis. But you can see that where it's at right now, it still, again, has a long way to fall. And, I'm scared. I hope all of you guys are doing the best you can to overcome this. Stay close to your family, stay healthy. Make sure you do the quiz. There will be a quiz on Canvas over these last 2 lectures. And I hope you took really good notes. Please stay safe. And also, the course evaluations, nobody's told us to say anything to you guys, but I'm sure they'll be out there. So, it's probably located on, Canvas or Badger Web or something. So please fill it out. We really appreciate it. We use that information to make us better professors. Tell us what we're doing good, and tell us what we're doing bad, and tell us how to fix it. Because keep in mind, college is a business, and you are the customers. And without you guys, we can't exist. So please let us know. And just, you guys have been a great class. Thank you for everything. Really, honestly. I hope to see you guys next semester, and maybe I'll send out a few more news videos as more news comes in. I want